I'll just read a quick bio about himself, and then I'll let him get to discussing the keynote. So today we have Eddie Edhem Custovic. He is by day an engineer, an academic, and researcher at La Trobe University. And others of you may know him as the founder of the Bosnia Herzegovina Futures Foundation. And the foundation, you may have seen them in social media. That's how I came across them. I've been listening to their Future Voices, which is a podcast. That's another way I came across them. But the foundation's vision is to break down ethnic division in our homeland in Bosnia through a simple approach of empowering youth through education, technology access, and leadership development. He has a deep commitment to making positive change for the world. For him, the intersection between scientific innovation and human empowerment is where we can really disrupt the future. Eddie's life motivation is to use the powers of engineering, education, networking, entrepreneurial mindset, and the spirit of positive change to empower individuals and grow local economies while delivering the scientific advancement of our finest minds for the benefit of future generation. Finally, Eddie's widely credited for bringing new levels of energy, ideas, and pathways to mobilize the intellectual capacity of the Bosnian diaspora. I do have to apologize. Eddie's resume is quite large and amazing. If you wanted to read more about him, please go to the website. Also go to our website. There's a lot of liberty that I took with your resume just for the sake of time, but he's accomplished a lot and he's done a lot of work. So this is a true leader in our community. So I'll let him speak and continue.
Thank you very much, Samir, for that introduction. And the shorter the better with my bio. There's no need to go through all the details, but essentially I'm just a very enthusiastic Bosnian that's, I guess, doing some cool things, and I'd love to present to you guys what I'm doing. So first of all, I'm just going to share my screen here with everyone. So, okay. So let me just start off by saying congratulations to the organizing team for bringing this conference together in these difficult times during COVID-19. And it's such a pleasure to see so many of you online. And I do have to say that I do see some familiar faces. In fact, some of you are involved in many of our initiatives in the foundation. So some of this stuff might be new to you and some of the stuff might be quite familiar to you. In advance, I just want to apologize on behalf of Vanessa Rehan today. She's had a COVID-19 incident in the household. So she's pulled the plug on the last minute, but she said, I'm pretty sure that you can handle this on your own. So she sends her apologies in advance. So I'll just start off briefly because I think you've all shared, I'm pretty sure you've shared all your life stories. I'm not going to go into the full biography of where I started my career, et cetera, et cetera. But like most of you, obviously I was born in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I was born in Tuzla. And due to the war, obviously, like many families that moved out of Bosnia, we ended up moving as refugees to Switzerland. So my early career started in Switzerland. And several years later, we moved to Australia. And of course, I always put different flags to show where I've been. And I also want to acknowledge the original custodians of the land that I'm on, the Aboriginals before the Anglo-Saxons arrived here. And I always do that out of respect towards them. You can see a couple of photos of me there. And the reason I put that second photo there is that I always like to acknowledge my younger brother, Rashad, who's the co-founder of this foundation and also the engine in the background that rarely anyone ever sees. And I always like to just give him a bit of praise for helping me get started with everything. So I always like to start my presentations with the why. And like many of you, I'm sure that you felt frustrated throughout the years of what's going on in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and you've wanted to do something about it, didn't know where to get started, didn't know who to contact, et cetera, et cetera. So this has been something that's been picking at my brain for more than 20 years. And of course, when you're younger, you think to yourself, I don't have the resources, the capacity, I don't know the people, so what do I do and how do I get involved? The frustration for me that boiled over and got me to take some action was really listening to various people in diaspora talk very negatively about Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it's funny that when we speak to individuals who are not from Bosnia and Herzegovina, we talk very positively about our country. I think at least most people do. But when we're amongst each other, we tend to pick at everything that doesn't work and all the negativities, and yet there's nothing we can do about it. So I started reading a lot into, what is it that makes an entire nation very, very successful? What is it that drives success of a country? And I came across this very interesting paper, which I can share with you later on if you're interested in reading it. It was written by several business schools, and MIT and Harvard was just some of them, but it was INSEAD as well. And really, the whole paper boils down to one thing. I mean, there's a lot of variables in this formula here, but the one thing that stood out for me was that a country's wealth and success really correlates with its collective knowledge. And that really sort of played to me, and I said, collective knowledge. What does collective knowledge actually mean for Bosnia and Herzegovina? And I think a lot of people will jump out the idea and say, okay, what collective knowledge do we have between the borders of Bosnia and Herzegovina? And I started thinking, what collective knowledge do we possess globally? And as I started exploring and really deep diving through LinkedIn, and I have to say, thanks LinkedIn for making this all possible, I get super excited when I see the talent that we have globally. I mean, it's like walking into a candy store and seeing all the fun colors and all the different tastes and flavors and everything that's been achieved by individuals from Bosnia across the world. Young people, old people, everyone else in between. And that for me was an inspiration. And I wanted to somehow tap into that and find a way to connect what's in Bosnia with what's outside of Bosnia through a truly meaningful way to actually take action, but also deliver some key results. And so when people say, oh, okay, so what does Bosnia and Herzegovina Futures Foundation do, right? You guys give out scholarships. We're not a classic foundation like many people might have seen in Bosnia, where we just give people money to go and study. While that's a very, very important part of young people's education, is making sure they have access to education, we do a lot more than that. So we like to think of ourselves as an incubator and accelerator of human potential. And that's a very important thing, because a lot of young people in Bosnia are used to going through the various stages of their education cycle, like many of us did in our respective homes, and expecting something magical to happen at the end. And of course, that's not entirely true, especially in places like Bosnia, where there are millions of different challenges that students face. So we wanted to find a way to bring out the best potential out of every young person that we work with in the country. And for those of you that have some sort of engineering or mathematics background, I took a bit of a play at a very, very common equation here at the top corner, which talks about average acceleration. Except what we're doing here is we're looking at the average rate of talent development, where we take the final and starting potential and we look at how much time you've spent with the foundation. That's essentially the final product, that we empower people to become the best versions of themselves. And so our vision, mission, and values are actually very important. I know they sometimes tend to be a little bit boring, but we have a very, very grand vision. And the grand vision really is to ensure that Bosnia becomes a very prosperous nation in every sense of the word prosperous and advanced, by enabling these young people to respond to the challenges of the 21st century, specifically 21st century. And although the 21st century will change a lot as we go on and the challenges will become difficult, but it's that ability to adapt to the challenges that are thrown at us. And lifelong learning is key to that. So making sure that these young people recognize that learning doesn't stop when you stop your formal education. And we do that by empowering everyone that's in our team through non-formal education, I have to say, predominantly, because the formal education does come through the various institutions in Bosnia and Herzegovina or in other countries per se. But the non-formal education part is something that in Bosnia and Herzegovina for many years has been downplayed as, yeah, that's just something that you do on the side. While many of us who grew up in other countries realize that I would comfortably say that at least 50, maybe even more, 50% of my professional development actually came outside of the classroom while I was studying undergraduate, postgraduate, whatever else I did in my life. And so we are trying to put a big emphasis on the scales to say they're both equally important. You need to play more in this sector here to be able to develop. Technology access, we know today that young people can't actually do anything major in the world without proper technology access. So we try to provide as much as we can, whether that's in Bosnia or outside of Bosnia, but having access to it is key. And lastly, and probably the most important aspect of our mission, is that leadership development. We have tons of examples of great individuals who have achieved amazing things, but very poor leadership capacity. And I think it's a shame that individuals who have such capacity and potential don't live up to their full leadership capacity because they downplay leadership as something that you either are born with or something that you need to be aware of and really take a serious note on. What we like to say is that everyone become a great leader, some better than others, but leadership can be learned. You're not born with leadership skills, even though we tend to say that someone's better than others. And all of this sort of culminates into what we call change makers. Every single young person that comes through the foundation in the end becomes a change maker. And a change maker in our sense is really someone who takes responsibility and action for their local community. You don't have to be a patriot at the country level. Be a local patriot and bring change to your local community, whether that's your village, your town, your school, your community, your company, whatever it is. Be someone who brings about positive change, and that collective positive change cascades and starts to create a whole collage of positive news stories, which play a huge part in how people actually live in that particular environment. And there's a reason why we have these 6 core values in our foundation. There's a reason why the entrepreneurial one is first. We are strongly advocating development of entrepreneurial skill sets for young people, because Bosnia and Herzegovina can't rely on existing companies to provide all the job vacancies that are needed in order to grow the economy. So making sure that young people are empowered through various skills, but specifically focusing on developing that entrepreneurial mindset. An entrepreneurial mindset doesn't mean that you go out and hustle and sell and do whatever you need to do. There's a lot of different characteristics, which I won't go into now. But what I always like to say is we just need to learn how to hustle in every given situation. We need to know how to bring out the best in every possible situation. And so we do a lot of that. We, of course, strive for excellence. We're a very small country. We have, less than 3.5 million people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Some people say 3 million because 500,000 live in neighboring countries and just come in to vote and see their family, which is quite possibly true. Someone else can correct me if I'm wrong. But the excellence really means that we have to be better than the world's average. With 3.5 million people, even with 5 million people, we can't compete on volume. We have to compete on excellence. And that means striving for excellence on a daily basis. Acting with integrity, because we all know what it means not to have integrity in Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. And we give students lots of examples of what that means in day-to-day life through the frustrations that they experience, by making sure that they understand what it means to be a leader with integrity. We do embrace diversity in the most holistic point of view. Our organization is probably one of the most diverse that you will see in Bosnia and Herzegovina, from our senior leadership, talking about ethnicity, sexual orientation, race, whatever you want to go into, we've got it. And we're very, very diverse in that particular sense. And most of all, we serve the community. So we are not there to serve ourselves, we are there to serve others. And that leadership and that serving the community component, you can see how they gel together. These are very important things. But what are we trying to achieve, let's say, in the short-term goal? Because people always say, well, I want to change the world in the next few years. I think we have to be realistic, and our realistic goal is that by 2030, that we have 10,000 change makers. Now, 10,000 in the grand scheme of things, especially if you live in the United States, doesn't seem like a big number, but we did a lot of work in getting to this number. We calculated that 10,000 young people who are deeply empowered to bring about positive change, who are very successful in their rightful communities, implanted in the right places, can bring about massive change at the country level. And this is change that you might not see happening right in front of you, but it's systematically in the background, the right people, the right values, the right global connections, the right knowledge injected into various aspects of our community start to bring about, gradual change in the corporate world, in the public sector, et cetera, et cetera. And so the entire focus of the foundation really is, it comes down to this simple diagram here. You can see that BiHFF, the foundation, is essentially a vehicle. And in this vehicle, we have lots of different stakeholders, but you, the diaspora, are a very big part of the solution here. And like many of you, always thought to myself, how can I get involved? How can I get involved? Well, we've created a platform for everyone to be really involved. And essentially, in the platform, we have students, we have young individuals who are working with the foundation as scholars. And on the left-hand side, if you, at least for the argument's sake of this diagram, you have the diaspora and you have key knowledge bearers. And we sort of divide those three bits and pieces into capital investment, network investment, and knowledge investment, or knowledge capital. And all of these are essentially the fuel for this vehicle of change. And because each one of us has different skill sets that we can bring to the table, all we need is really a platform to connect us to the places where our skills are mostly needed. Now, we are not perfect by any sense in that means, but the model is starting to show incredible results. And when I say incredible results, I don't just mean incredible results for young people in Bosnia, but incredible results for Bosnian Herzegovinians living and working in other countries, perhaps individuals that were born in other countries and are looking to reconnect. And that connection can happen in so many different ways, and I'll talk about some of them as time goes on. We're essentially providing global skill sets to young people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I always sort of refer to and say, you know, if I was going back in time now and I was wondering, hey, you know, I would have loved to have access to A, B, and C. What were those things? Did I actually know what I needed at the time to succeed? You know, for many things I didn't. But I have these big brothers and big sisters now as part of this organization who actually know what it means to be successful globally, at a global level. And why can't I do that now from my local community to the world? Given the fact that we have access to all the technologies, we're connected via the internet, so it doesn't mean that I can't do anything, I can access information wherever I want. So we're a global community, whether we like it or not. But how do we tap into that core knowledge that our community possesses globally and really apply that at a local level? And there are many organizations that are doing this at a smaller scale. We're trying to scale this up, and we collaborate very closely with other organizations. And I know Sanita Slipet's here as well from Bosana Foundation and the Bosnian American Academy as well, Arts and Science. So we work with everyone to try and make this happen. And this vehicle essentially needs to become multiple trains or buses rather than just a small car to enable it to happen. Our scholar journey is quite, I'll say in many ways complicated, but for your argument's sake, it's going to be simplified here in this diagram, is that we have essentially 4 programs. And what happens is all of our scholars, applicants, apply, and they get into what's called the incubation program, and they're labeled as junior scholars. So they go through a 2-year program in incubation acceleration before becoming an alumni. The Ignite program is set up for high school students. So you can imagine this, you know, transition of young people going through various programs that are specifically designed, tailored towards their personal needs, as well as universal skill sets that we believe they need, and they become alumni. Once they're alumni, they're really core community leaders. They're taking action on a daily basis and doing some pretty incredible stuff. Now, our donor network that enables all of this to happen is quite large, and it grows day to day. We set our goal with a campaign that we call 1000 puta 5 da promijeniš njihov svijet, which basically translates to, you know, 1,000 good people to change their world. And what we're attempting to do is get 1,000 Bosnian Herzegovinians to make a monthly donation of just €5 or US dollars a month. And the way I always say that to my colleagues is, look, how many coffees a week do you drink? Okay, so I don't need to do the math for you to explain that €5 a month is not a huge impact on your financial standing, but it can make a huge difference when you add that multiplier to young people in Bosnia. So our focus has always been on that. And thankfully, some really great ambassadorship work. Our network now, you know, of donors is in 38 countries. Believe it or not, we have donors in Africa. We have Bosnian Herzegovinians living in Kenya and South Africa and China, et cetera, et cetera. So it's quite impressive what the network's been able to do. I'll skip over that for a second. The reason our programs have huge success at a global level is that we have a huge ambassador network. And the ambassadors are essentially individuals who have, you know, built various careers in various aspects of their community life. And they contribute by advocating for the foundation, by connecting the right knowledge with the right individuals, by fundraising, et cetera, et cetera. But what's been most amazing is networks like the one you guys have also created, and this conference here is just seeing the amazing individuals and what they're doing in various countries around the world. I mean, knowing that you have someone in China that's in education, knowing that you have someone in Kenya that's doing sustainable forestry or curing diseases in Turkey, it's just incredible what knowledge we possess and what we could do if we can just find a way to connect this into one big engine that drives change. We have a mentor network. So each one of our students in the foundation has a mentor. Some of them have more than one mentor, and I, of course, can't put all their photos here, but just to give you an idea how big that mentor network is, we currently have about 300 plus mentors from 40 plus countries. Now, that mentor network could easily grow to 1,000 plus, but of course, we have to be careful about supply and demand. Mentors get frustrated when they don't get a student, just like students get frustrated when they don't get a mentor. But through this mentoring, let's say, relationship that we have between students and mentors, what you see happening is the level of engagement of mentors with Bosnia and Herzegovina exponentially grows as a result of seeing the positive change they are instilling in young people they work with. And that, for me, is perhaps a bigger win than the knowledge that has been passed on to the student themselves. Because we are reactivating, I mean, some of these individuals are super active anyways, but we are reactivating some individuals that said, I don't want to have anything to do with Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm so frustrated. I've been lied to. I've lost money, et cetera, the politics. You know, I don't have to talk about it. But we somehow reinvigorate their actual passion towards the country and helping out by giving them that one-on-one relationship or one-on-two relationship where they can drive change at a very, very small level, but that grows as that individual grows as well. We have held, I believe, in total, something like 25 networking events around the world. Vastly because I travel a lot prior to COVID, by the way. And I noticed some of you on the call here that I've met at various networking events before. You can see we've been in various parts of the US, various parts of the mainland Europe. Obviously, we were planning to go to so many different places over the last 2 years, but COVID stopped us from doing that. And what we do at these meetup events is really, we bring together several stakeholders. We bring industry, so we bring Bosnian and Herzegovinian companies as much as we can, wherever we can, where that's accessible. We bring the local community, i.e. the diaspora who lives in that particular place. And we always, wherever we can, bring along one or two or more of our students from the foundation. And the purpose is to really fuse their interests and to see how these young people can learn on site from these professionals, where they can establish business relationships, where they can grow businesses together, where they can inject funding, where they can do startups, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just wonderful to see that after all of these events, that we've pulled out some, obviously, some statistics for you here. You know, 85% of people said they met at least one or more super useful contacts. 95% of people said they thoroughly really enjoyed the networking, that had a slightly different focus. And 65% of people, surprisingly, even to me, met someone they can do business with. And you can see that the fact that the Bosnian companies are perhaps getting a business contact means that they're more willing to work with the foundation, make donations, donate equipment, et cetera, et cetera. It has to be a win-win situation for everyone. We can't be greedy and just say, what's in it for me? We run webinars for students, and not just for students, for entire communities. I think we've run something like over 100 webinars over the last few years, and we have tapped into some of the greatest minds that we have in the diaspora and the community. Now, webinars are designed to obviously inject new knowledge, new ideas into young people, into the community. But the way we challenge young people and say learning is cool, you have to motivate people. So we have what's called the Champions League of Knowledge. And essentially, anyone that follows our webinars, especially the young people that are involved, they get to sign up to this Champions League of Knowledge. And during the year, you get to watch all the webinars and you get sent out a quiz based on each webinar. You answer those quizzes, they're very, very short. And at the end of what we call the season, the top individuals who have followed and answered all the questions get awarded monetary, obviously, prizes to learn. So basically what we're saying to young people is learning is cool, get rewarded for your learning, and here's a little bit of a financial incentive for you to keep working with us in that process. We obviously run podcasts. You mentioned that during the introduction. The purpose of the podcast is multifold, but I'll just mention what the most important aspect of the podcast is. The podcast is in English. And of course, we get criticized all the time. A što nije na bosanskom? You know, that's a typical response that we get from local people. But what I always say is that we all speak the local languages. Whether you speak Bosnian, Serbian, or Croatian, it's irrelevant. The purpose here really is to display our best to the world, to start changing how they perceive Bosnia and Herzegovina and what Bosnian and Herzegovinian success means. We all know that sports professionals are great ambassadors, and I'm all for that. But I think beyond the few sports professionals that we have, like the Yusuf Nurkićs and the Edin Džekos and others that have done great things, we have incredible individuals in the corporate world, in the social enterprise world, in politics, in various aspects at a global level. And we need to talk about those individuals, and we shouldn't be talking about them in our local languages, because that's like inside your family talking about what you want others to know outside. We need to talk about it externally. And that's why the podcast is in English. I strongly encourage you to listen to some of the podcasts. I will announce that Borislav Tadic, who is a Senior Vice President of Deutsche Telekom, it's equivalent to AT&T in Europe, essentially, is our next podcast guest, and just incredible individuals. You can find our podcast basically anywhere in Spotify and Google, etc., etc. They're all listed there. One of the competitions which we're very, very proud of, and I'm also going to ask all of you to get involved. You have a link at the bottom there, so you can type that into your browser and browse through the presentations. It's called the 3-minute thesis competition. For those of you that live in the US, you've probably come across this before. In a nutshell, what it is research active students, bachelor, master's, PhD, in 3 minutes or less get to talk about their research in a way that the general public can really digest. And for us, it has multiple values that it's producing. One is really displaying our talent to the world. The presentations are vastly in English, but they're subtitled in the local languages because we want locals to actually consume this and see there's a lot more to Bosnia and Herzegovina than just what they see. And over the years, the competition, obviously, the last probably 12, 18 months that we've worked on is going to grow. But the greatest thing here really is that we've been able to connect with 200 plus academics of Bosnian origin. And they're having a great time reviewing these presentations. I'm sure you will as well. Lots of YouTube hits, of course, not as much as some of these individuals that are doing really cool stuff on YouTube, but from a scientific or research perspective, we're more than happy with the numbers that we're getting. And you guys can contribute as well by liking, sharing, commenting on their videos. It means a lot to these young people when one of you who are very successful provide them with some feedback and just give them a little bit of encouragement on social media to say, keep it up, you're doing a great job. It's amazing what a few words of encouragement from people like yourself can do for these young individuals. During COVID-19, when it started, obviously in Bosnia and Herzegovina, schools really struggled to bring online learning. And we did two things. So one of them is we launched the largest tutoring program in the country. We had over 450 participants and we had 65 plus tutors. I think in total did something like 10,500 hours of tutoring completely free from March until May. So in less than 2.5 months, we did 10,000 hours of tutoring. That program was so successful, and because it was free and much needed, it allowed people in diaspora to become tutors to young people in Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. We are now successfully running that tutoring program. We are limiting it to a number per semester. It just becomes too hard to manage and we just don't have all the resources. But it's now a free tutoring program that runs twice a year, where we take in 100 to 150 students every semester, not the same students, and we provide them one-on-one tutoring for whatever classes they need, irrespective of what domain they come from. But students are important, teachers are even more important. So while our foundation is focused on providing resources for young people, predominantly students from high school and university studies, we can't emphasize enough how important it is not to forget the people that actually teach, and that is the high school teachers, the elementary school teachers, and the university class teachers. So we launched a course last year on our own platform here. Custovic is a Canadian platform called Lideri Online Nastave. So basically leaders of online education, to teach teachers in the former, we say ex-Yugoslavia, right? Western Balkans, because the language is pretty much the same language. Over 10,000 enrollments into the course online last year during COVID-19. Incredible feedback. I think we got 4.9 out of 5 stars in the entire course structure. 15 individuals from, I think, 7 countries who have experience in online education were involved in crafting together the course, completely free. So I appeal to you as well. If you have ideas about courses that you would like to design and run online, completely free, because everything that we do has to be completely accessible to everyone. I urge you to get involved with us in some way you can. And the one next door, you can see the other course, Skrivena umjetnost hakiranja intervjua, is one that was on demand by students, learning how to absolutely nail interviews. So we created this course together with Zygoverse, which is an Australian company that takes students all the way from, how to prepare for an interview all the way through to, what you expect from HR. And that's going to be available very, very shortly to everyone in the country as well. I'll skip over this part, it's not important. You might have seen this in media. Vera Snajder, if you haven't heard of this incredible woman, she was really a pioneer of education in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Several years ago, I read her story and I was extremely, extremely disappointed to find out that unlike the many titles of streets and schools and various places in Bosnia that have been given names to individuals that, if you ask me, are not deserving of anything, especially naming of a street, Vera Snajder didn't have anything named after her. And I'll explain why this is so significant. So Vera Snajder, at a time when women didn't even get a high school education, pioneered education. She basically came from a relatively poor family, and she ended up studying in Sarajevo. Mathematics was her thing that she did. And she ended up getting a scholarship to study mathematics and actually working at a research institute in France. I won't go through the whole story, but just to give you a bit of significance. That happened in the 1920s. And I think if you probably look at who was university educated at the entire level of Bosnia and Herzegovina, there are some statistics to say at the turn of that century, there were less than 100 individuals who had university education in Bosnia and Herzegovina who were of Bosnian Herzegovinian background. I'm not talking about the Austrians or the Czechs, etc., etc. Less than 100 individuals. Now, that's probably not a bad figure given that higher education at the time was not accessible to the poor. But Vera Snajder at that time, at the turn of that century, became a woman who had a higher education, who went to France under scholarship, who was offered the world in France working in a research facility, and decided to come back to Bosnia and Herzegovina, Yugoslavia, to help educate other women in mathematics and bring education to a higher level. So she was really a trailblazer at the time. She educated hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals that went on to create massive careers around the world. And we decided to basically create an award in her name. The individual that you see in the top right corner, Dragan Huterer, is actually her grandson. And her grandson is a professor of astrology and physics in University of Michigan. And I connected with him and I said, look, this is really, really sad that your grandmother has nothing to show for her name and all the great work. And so we got going. And what I wanted to show you guys here on the right-hand side is that the committee, the selection committee, is essentially made up of some of our greatest minds in the diaspora. And there's great ways to get connected and involved in this particular way. I strongly advise you to promote this award. The award gives 5,000 Bosnian marks to a young female researcher. And that means bachelor, master's, and PhD to go to any conference she pleases, she wants to go to around the world. And that's retracing Vera's steps. So she went to France, it opened up new opportunities for her, and we want to open up opportunities to someone else. And basically, we want to enable the next Vera to rise up and start creating that change in her community. We run entrepreneurial programs, as I mentioned earlier on. I won't talk about all the details here. It's a 12-week program. It's very, very intense. It's run in collaboration with my university as well. It's completely free. Like other programs, we have hundreds of individuals involved as mentors, as coaches, as lecturers. Maybe some of you have been involved in the past. What we do at the end is that these young individuals will pitch for funding. The funding can be anywhere between 10,000 to 100,000, depending on who's available in the audience. But essentially, we're creating that entrepreneurial flair. We have maker spaces all over Bosnia and Herzegovina, or some of them have been brought to a halt because of COVID. Maker spaces, essentially think of them as your bedroom, jam-packed with all sorts of toys that you can play with and create with, really enabling young people to learn informally where they have control of the space, they have control of the technology, and they connect with other individuals. We have a mobility program within the makerspaces. So kids from, for example, Srebrenica will travel to Donji Vakuf, to Banja Luka, to Cazin and BiH. And essentially, we're creating a community, and these makerspaces serve as bases to engage communities. So all of these individuals that are in the spaces, tinkering away, making things, they're also going out to smaller villages, to elementary schools, running workshops, connecting with people, giving them hope, and essentially creating a relationship that enables them to be very great professionals. What does the future hold for us? There's so much stuff going on, and I can't talk about everything, but essentially, a few of you might know this, but we're in discussions with MIT to do an MIT summer school in Mostar. And the MIT summer school would be a school where we would offset the costs of Bosnian Herzegovinian students participating, while individuals from other countries would be paying the full premium fee that MIT charges. But the purpose really is to connect MIT with excellence, and to connect it with symbolic places like Mostar. And we like to say where the East and West connects. But essentially, it's more than just the connection between those two. We want the world to come to Mostar. We want the MIT academics, along with some of our local and very talented individuals, to learn at that particular venue. This was supposed to happen next year. Given the COVID situation, our ability to plan, it's probably been pushed out to 2023. But if you're interested, please get involved. We have a summer camp, which has been in the planning for 2 years as well. The purpose of this summer camp is really to bring together high school students in the diaspora and high school students in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and really allow them to learn, play, and do everything else that comes along with that environment, cohesive environment, somewhere in Bosnia. So we're talking about 200 young individuals where they will have the opportunity to learn. So think of you with your parents. If you're not parents, that's fine. But if you were a parent, you had a high school daughter or son, you could send them to the summer camp where they would learn, various topics from, team leadership, language, sports, music, etc., etc. But it's a place for young Bosnian Herzegovinians to connect and learn and establish long-term relationships. We have numerous awards in the planning, and the purpose of these awards isn't just to give away awards. It's really to bring back the names of incredible individuals who have made a really big mark on the world, but for some reason have been completely left out in the Bosnian Herzegovinian community. And I'll just mention a few of them here. Josip Bac, who for many of you probably don't know of him, my father didn't know about him either, is essentially the individual that discovered probably like 50% of underground water in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So all of those places that people talk about, thermal healing waters, etc., etc., he was responsible. He was essentially an honorary citizen in like 15 different cities in the European Union today. And very few people know about him. Vladimir Prelog was a Nobel Prize winner. And Mahmud Bayraktarovic was basically essentially a god in mathematics in Europe. And some people probably don't know about him as well. We are working on 2 additional programs. We have an inter-university exchange program that aims to take students from, say, for example, Tuzla, and exchange them with students in Banja Luka, and students from Banja Luka with students in Mostar. This is very, very complicated in Bosnia, given that institutions don't necessarily recognize each other and don't give credit. So we are working with individual academics to establish this program, because while mobility international is important, I can't emphasize how important local mobility is. There is a great divide that's being created because people just don't move. Part of it is because of the poor infrastructure. Part of it is because of lack of engagement. Part of it is because of the war. But I think we can do a lot more by creating better links between universities and allowing them to do that. And the second part between universities is internationalization of faculties. And this is where a lot of you can really get involved. All of you have your alma mater. You've studied at different universities. We want to create an environment in Bosnia and Herzegovina where each university will have a select number of courses in the English language, where we can start bringing international students to come and study for a semester abroad in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I've successfully done this now for 5 years in a row. I've brought over 150 students from Australia to Bosnia and Herzegovina to do 1-month programs. They were short programs. They were not semester-long programs, but each one of you can actually get involved in that, because once we have individuals from other countries coming to Bosnia, collaborating with the Bosnian Herzegovinian students, collaborating with the academics, we start to create a truly international community, and we need to start internationalizing much of what we do. And essentially, that's where the world's going. I put a photo of Shanghai there because we're in the process of doing the same with several Chinese universities and high schools. We've got Barbir. We're going to bring students from China to Bosnia and Herzegovina, hopefully when COVID basically ends. And with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation and just say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. I hope that some of the initiatives that we're working on have inspired you to think about how you can be engaged and how we can collaborate. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, but also feel free to follow us on social media or hit me up on any platform that you feel you can access me on. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eddie. I wish we were in a room right now that you could feel the energy and everyone else could feel the energy, but there was a lot of comments on the chat, and I don't know if you have it pulled up, but as you were talking about all the different activities that your foundation does, everyone, I'm just getting the general sense of the people is floored and excited and happy to hear about the organization. I think you also received a few new donors. So this is great for your foundation, great for networking, great for everyone to know about BiH.
Thanks so much, guys.
There were a few questions. I'll just read out to them. I think some of them were answered. One was, how do you become an ambassador? And then Damir answered by getting involved and donating your links. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, or was that the best way of finding out how to become an ambassador?
Yeah, so good question. I think if you go to our website, you'll see a button called Get Involved. And the reason it's designed that way is because I had a billion questions from people on LinkedIn and social media. How do I get involved? What can I do? So we started creating this simple approach that once you click on Get Involved on our page, it'll take you to 3 categories, whether you're a student, a professional, or an organization. And then once you click on those tabs, it'll just open up a whole bunch of options for you. Ambassadorship is the same approach. You basically click on, I want to become an ambassador. You send through a Google form, and then one of our lead ambassadors, Leila Seperovic from Sydney, she'll contact you and she'll organize a bit of a chat, and then we'll go from there. So it's very, very simple. And that also is true for any other activity. If you want to become a mentor as well, if you want to become a donor, if you want to donate some equipment that you have, an old laptop, an old iPad, a calculator, like you can basically donate anything, and the makerspaces make real good use of that. So anything that you feel that you want to throw out, that you feel can have an extension of its life, please get in touch with us. More than happy to coordinate with other organizations as well, guys. So we are not hogging this at all. I mean, really, the more we collaborate, the more impact we can make, and more than happy to collaborate with other organizations.
I think you gave a lot of people some good ideas, because you can raid your closet, you can raid your community, you can go into your greater community and say, I'm doing a donation drive for this great cause. So you've given us a lot of food for thought, a lot of ideas, and I'm reading the chat here. If anyone else has any questions they'd like to ask, please feel free to put it in the chat. There was a few other questions. I think another one was, this was probably in the middle of your presentation. One question was, are schools in Bosnia still virtual? I can't remember at what point this question was asked, but I'm throwing it out.
Good question. And the answer is yes and no. So as you know, Bosnia is very fragmented in the approach of how it actually deals with COVID. So what happens in Republika Srpska and what happens in Federacija BiH tend to differ. There were periods where everyone was shut down. Then there were periods where one came online and the others stayed hybrid, and the others went fully online, and then others went fully face-to-face. So what we're doing, irrespective of COVID, is we're continuing the tutoring program, for example, irrespective of COVID and what happens, it's going to continue on. But the short answer to your question is, right now, some schools are still online, and many other schools are going into hybrid mode, hybrid delivery. So if anything, COVID has sped up the digitalization of education in Bosnia more than the government did in the last 20 years. So, you know, you can look at COVID and thank COVID for some things as well.
This is a question from me, just curious, maybe anyone else has a curiosity, but from when you received the seed of this idea to create this foundation and where you are now and looking into the future, kind of reflection of that, what you take us to the time that you had this idea of creating BiH Futures Foundation and where you are now. And I think you touched on a little bit of that, of why you wanted to create it. And to me, it seems like you've created this kind of like the Amazon and Googles of the world. You created this in your garage and now you have it across the world. But if you can take us back to that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. And I was always afraid of running over time, because there's so many different initiatives and so many things that we do that I always find it difficult to compress it into a half-an-hour presentation. But basically, the whole thing really started off in 2015. Obviously, I'm an academic at La Trobe University. I also have several companies that my brother and I run. And so because of all of my work, I travel a lot. And because of that travel, I meet a lot of amazing people. While I enjoy going to various shows and watching sports, etc., especially in the US, what I enjoy most is meeting incredible Bosnian Herzegovinians doing some amazing stuff. And so through those connections, I ended up becoming a board member in this institution of electrical and electronic engineers, which is the world's largest professional organization for engineers with 400,000 members. And it was this institution that essentially was a catalyst for the foundation, and I'll explain why. So there are about 300 members in Bosnia and Herzegovina that are part of this organization. It's a very small number in comparison to other countries. But one of those members, and I always have to mention her name, is Professor Dušanka Bošković. So she's a professor at the Faculty of Electrical Engineering in Sarajevo. And because we're both members of this organization, she reached out to me one time and said, hi, Eddie, I saw that you're on this board. You're a very high position in the organization. Do you think that you'll ever come to Bosnia and perhaps you'd be interested to speaking to our students? And of course, for me, there were bells, bing, 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 bing. I'm like, oh, someone's invited me to come to Bosnia and not to eat cevapi. I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So that was super exciting for me, because that was the first time I was invited professionally back to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I'm just going to dwell on that for a second. Perhaps you've all gone through this, or perhaps you haven't yet, but with all of the achievements that you've had in your career, nothing will really compare to the moment that you're recognized in your home country by someone, whether it's someone that's a student or someone that's a professor. It doesn't matter. It's just someone in your home country recognizing you exist, you've done incredible stuff, you've built an amazing career, and we want some of that knowledge. Can you please come and share it with us? For me, that was the most exciting part of my career, despite all the other stuff that I did before that point. And when I went to Sarajevo and I met Dušanka and I met the students, my mind started to run and I started to think about, what can I do here? I have to explain, you cannot go to Bosnia and interact with students and not feel that you have to do something. And I'm sure Sanita, who's also on call here, will tell you the same story, and many others who have been engaged. It's when you see that creativity and that passion, you want to help. You just don't know sometimes how to help. And when I went to Sarajevo, I was supposed to give a presentation at the time, a technical presentation about digital radar systems, which was my PhD topic at the time. I didn't do that. I basically stood up and I said, I don't want to drain you with a presentation that's going to go over your head that you probably won't be able to do anytime soon because it's a highly resourceful project. Let's talk about you. And the students were shocked because here I was, who they perceived to be relatively successful, wanting to know about them, wanting to know about their problems, trying to find out where can I contribute to their development as opposed to let me just boast about my success. And that sort of started that whole cycle of young people really saying, Eddie, let's get involved. And I promised them 3 things at that presentation. I said that in less than 12 months, I was going to bring together everyone that I know in the diaspora, plus all of my colleagues, to run a big conference in Bosnia. I was going to set up a foundation, apologies, with my brother to give scholarships to students as best as I could. And the 3rd thing that I promised was an immediate action, that I was going to pay for all of their memberships in that particular lecture hall. Now, without looking into the audience, which I couldn't figure out how many people were there, I thought, well, maybe there's 50, 60 individuals. There was like 140 individuals in the audience. So that meant 140 individual transactions on my credit card going through that membership. But that really instilled a little bit of belief in students that what I was saying was, excuse my language, not bullshit. Because people in Bosnia promise things on a daily basis that are not delivered. So whatever you do small things, but deliver them to the fullest. Don't overpromise, underdeliver. But people in Bosnia cannot absolutely digest that. They're just so used to being lied to and so on. And that was really the start of the foundation. 12 months later in Sarajevo, we brought together a congress. We brought together individuals from different faculties. We brought together individuals from the Faculty of Electrical Engineering in East Sarajevo. So this is in Republika Srpska, with the students in the Federation at the Faculty of Electrical Engineering in Sarajevo. For many of us, that's like, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is that they're 6 kilometers apart and that there's very, very little collaboration between the 2 faculties. And when you speak to each one of them will say, oh, they don't want to collaborate with us. So when you come in with this rational perspective and you say, let's put that all aside and let's see what we can do, what will they all gravitate towards? And you find that common point and you bring them together, it's amazing. They absolutely forget about all the other crap that's dividing them and start focusing on the things that make them come together to drive results. And that was the start of the foundation, when we saw that this has potential and how much support that was being garnered overseas from various individuals, and that vehicle to deliver that knowledge, this thing just started to grow rapidly. And I have to say that I did get in touch with Sanita from Bosana Foundation early on, and I learned some things from Bosana Foundation, and I'm always thankful for the things they're doing as well. And we do collaborate wherever we can, and other foundations as well. So we're not here to hog any space. We have to collaborate, because if we had another 10 Eddies, 10 Sanitas, another 10 of each one of you, it's still not enough to really make that huge impact that we want to make. So let's come together and let's really do some big things, because I believe that this generation right now is the last generation of Bosnian Herzegovinians that will really care at this level about Bosnia and Herzegovina. You can see that that's slowly dwindling away in the next generation, because the disconnect is growing. And I think if we don't do something now, we're really not going to be able to exploit that potential that we had. And I know many people, I don't want to talk about the politics of Israel as a country, because that's a whole nother discussion, but I just want to focus on what the Israelis have been able to do as a community, and really draw upon their diaspora and draw upon all of those resources to build essentially. And there's a great book that talks about Israel as an innovation nation. It talks about the ability to bring together all those stakeholders to drive that growth. And again, please don't take that as me supporting Israel anyway in terms of political point of view. I just want to talk about the example of how you draw upon your diaspora, how you can become cohesively constructive and really draw upon your best experiences to drive prosperity. And we can do that. We have 1.5 to 2 million people in diaspora. Approximately, 1 or 2% of them have PhDs. And okay, PhD is not a measure of success, but it's pretty incredible. Like 20% of them have a master's degree, and 50% of them have a higher education. A vast majority have businesses. Many of them are now in politics of other nations. Many of them are running clinical centers in other nations. So if we can't tap into those resources right now in a constructive way, the question is, are we going to be able to do that in 20, 30 years' time when their children are in those positions? And I really thank you guys for organizing this conference, because this conference allows us to come together and to start thinking about what we can do together in a very constructive way. And that's why I think what you're doing is incredible.
Thank you for those words. And again, I'm just taking comments from the chat, but what you were saying of this is the last generation to care, to be this much committed. Some people got chills from that. I know I did when you said that. I think this point was also made in previous workshops prior to you starting your keynote about this being the last generation, and we need to start writing our chapter, start empowering each other. I did want to ask you if you have time for 2 more questions, and then we'll conclude this. So these are more of the...
I got plenty of time. It's just you guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, we do too. So I guess 2+ questions. I'll start with that. This next question is also in the chat. It's more of a programmatic question for your organization. Is Zarina is asking, is the summer camp only for high schoolers, or can undergrad students participate? She has a niece that will be starting college in the fall, and the niece has an interest in education and teaching and would like to get involved within the Bosnian community more. Again, is the summer camp only for high schoolers, or can undergraduate students participate?
Yeah, very good question. What our plan initially was to involve high school students as the recipients of the knowledge. But anyone that's not a recipient is basically an educator or a facilitator or a leader. So I would strongly advise your niece to be involved from the teaching side of things. So that would be a fantastic way to get involved for someone who's just starting their college career, right? To be able to be involved in teaching some class to high schoolers in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It might be English language, it might be, I don't know, something about chemistry, it could be anything for that matter. But we want to create that environment where some of these more senior individuals are essentially passing on the knowledge and the younger individuals are adapting it. But I will say that irrespective of what we do, whether it's mentoring, teaching, if you're open to the idea, and I think most people are, you're learning as much as you're teaching. And on a daily basis, I learn from my students as much as they learn from me. So it's really a partnership. And that's what I always like to talk about, because some of the published work that we've conducted and side projects, we wrote this really cool paper where we treat students as colleagues rather than students. And once you start to create that collegiate environment with students and make them feel part of the team, you have some more senior individuals and you have some more junior individuals, but essentially we're on the same team. So the camp really is going to be sort of a teamed approach where we have some senior individuals who have a little bit more knowledge, but that doesn't mean they're not learning from the students and the other colleagues at the camp there. So the long answer to your short question really is, yes, she can be involved. To what extent and how that's going to look is probably unclear yet, but I would say definitely as someone who can actually teach something during that camp, but of course participate in other activities. There'll be joint activities between students and staff and senior people as well.
Thank you. I'll do this as the last question. I was informed by that we wanted to do the closing session in a few minutes, so I'll just do this as the last question, and then I'll just point again that we're thankful from the organizers and everyone that's joined today for your time and for your presentation today. So this last question is, what about having an educational exchange, having Bosnian students come to the US and Bosnian diaspora studying in Bosnia?
Yeah, another great question. So I'm going to talk about this one from 2 perspectives. So basically exchanges from universities in Bosnia to universities in various countries tends to be relatively difficult, especially with state universities. And this is why several private universities have popped up over the years in Bosnia and Herzegovina, is because of the frustration and the slow bureaucratic processes that are involved in any aspect of anything that's government run in Bosnia. I'm pretty sure most of you know that already. Whether you've drawn out your own ID card in Bosnia or tried to pay something, it's really frustrating. And this also really folds over to the public education sector. So there are exchanges between universities in Bosnia and universities around the world. Less so with the United States, and I'm pretty sure there's a couple of barriers to doing that. One, it's a lot harder to get a visa to the States than it is to other countries in Europe for most Bosnians that's going in. So that's the first thing that really deters people from doing it. Two, setting up that exchange, the US tends to be a lot more expensive for students to travel to as well. And then it comes down to, do the universities have a signed memorandum of understanding? In Europe, you have Erasmus+. So this is a program that really enables universities from Europe to exchange students at an individual level. And if it wasn't for Erasmus+, very few students from Bosnia would actually be doing exchanges, because they just don't have the finances. They would have to go through all the bureaucratic processes, et cetera, et cetera. So what you can do in terms of facilitating exchanges, we have sent something like, I think, 50 students to different countries on internships, as well as short study trips, right? Not perhaps semesters, because the expense of one semester in the United States for a student in Bosnia is just enormous. It's even for foundations. I'm pretty sure Sanita can also talk about this. It's possible, but not at the volume that we would like to do that, because the expenses are very, very high. But there are things that you can do and that we really want to grow. You can host a student. So I have hosted 7 students from Bosnia and Herzegovina in my home for 3 months since, because the Australian visa allows them to be here for 3 months. So you host them for 3 months in your home, you've reduced their costs by half. The foundation covers the costs of their flight, and we cover some really basic costs while they're there. If they're eating with you in your home and you're hosting or one of your friends, they're perhaps studying at the university, some short course, they're doing some sort of internship, essentially their costs of being there are reduced drastically. And that experience is more, let's say, executable than doing a full semester exchange with the university and doing the bureaucratic process. Although that being said, if you are in the academic world and you have a little bit of pull in your academic institution, then you can enable that. We've tried to do that numerous times with various institutions. There are initiatives that are going on. Right now, we're doing something with the university in Amsterdam, where we're sending about 10 our students to a summer school in Amsterdam, where we happen to have an academic from Bosnia who runs the summer school. So that was very, very simple to execute. But that being said, doing a whole semester, he said that's already another level of difficulty. So best to start with short courses, summer schools, internships, or just cultural exchanges. Like if you wanted to host a student from our foundation for 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, or whatever time period that you wanted to, and take them to your work where you work for essentially 7 days, just to show them what you do, we can make that happen. And you might be thinking, oh, 7 days, is that really going to change something for a student? Believe me, in 7 days, they will absorb that cultural difference that they need when they go back to Bosnia and start working for their companies. They start to inject some of that into their own day-to-day life. And you can play a big part in that. It's quite incredible what you can do in a short period of time. So if you're interested in doing anything like that, I'm all ears. I'm more than happy to collaborate. I'm more than happy to collaborate with Sanita from Bosana, because she is based in the US as well. So she has a lot more experience in operating the US than I do. But I guess the collaboration that we create here today can really make a difference long-term. So more than happy to support anyone who has any ideas and wants to do that.
And thank you for answering the question. There's a few more questions, but unfortunately, just because of the time, what we can do is we can send you the questions, Eddie, and you can answer them. Or if you wanted to quickly, there's in the chat, you can answer it privately.
Yeah, happy. If you tell me what the questions are, I can try to keep the answers short.
Oh, sure. One is, do you have a university-specific presentation I can share with local universities?
No, we don't, but I'm sure we can create something relatively quickly for you guys. So just let me know. I've left my email address in the chat there. I'm sorry, I can see some of the comments coming up, and thank you for all the great words and questions. I'm just finding it difficult to focus on this screen and answering the questions. But I'm going to ask the organizing team if you can just basically copy and paste that chat. I think you can export it from Zoom as well, the chat. If you can just send me the entire chat, and then I'll slowly go through that and get in touch with people, so that way I don't miss anything. And apologies if I missed your comment or question, so I will do that.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I do want to tell you that all the comments are overwhelmingly positive, and everyone is excited to have listened to your presentation, to have met you virtually, and the work that you're doing. So we thank you for your time. We thank you for waking up on a Sunday morning in Australia,
That's okay.
getting lots for us, and being here.
Good luck, guys. Thank you for everything. Amazing. And I'm looking forward to meeting many of you face to face when COVID-19 enables that for us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Eddie. And it's great to see you again, even if it's virtually. Wow, what an amazing day it has been, and what an overwhelming day it has been. We've been talking about so many different issues, and I want to focus on a couple things as we close out. Obviously, everybody would like to stay connected, but before we jump into that, I just want to get a sense of how folks feel in the room. So we're going to bring you back to Mentimeter one more time, and hopefully this will work. Great. So go to www.menti.com and use the code 89285680 and tell us, what is one word that describes how you're feeling at the close of BiH 2021?
Yeah, what is the code again? That was a question in the chat.
Yeah, it's at the top of the screen. So it's menti.com, and the code is 89285680. So if you have never used this before, the bigger the word, that means more people have submitted it. So we're feeling very inspired and motivated, optimistic, ready, encouraged, thankful, excited about next year. Yes, we're going to talk about it. Incredible, inspired as always, connected, joyful, powerful, tired. I hear you. Also tired. Feeling Bosnian and thankful. Impressed. Love it. I'll give like 3 more seconds in case people are submitting. Amazing. Awesome. And what is one action you will take after BiH 2021? Let us know. Networking. Get involved in mentoring. Oh, they're about to hit me like a train. Engage in self-care. Get ready for voter registration. Donate. Aim to connect to someone. Connect directly. Connecting to the diaspora. Networking. Get my citizenship. Yes. Become a mentor for BiH Futures Foundation. And get involved in organizations. Stay involved. Connecting with presenters and focusing more on giving back to the youth in Bosnia. Connect and get involved. Vote. Yes. Donate. Spread the word. LinkedIn connections. Create a task force for voting. We love that. Volunteer. Sign up for BiH 22. Yes. I love it. Feel free to keep submitting them, and we're going to Let me shift screen. So thank you all so much. Folks have already asked, what is the deal for BDC 22? And just like we planned in 2020, we are going to LA, and we're starting the planning process basically on Monday. So if you would like to be involved in helping planning, volunteering, offering any sort of resources, networking, you have ideas for speakers, etc., let us know. You can get in contact with us in a couple different ways. Ida has dropped in the chat our LinkedIn, our Diaspora group on LinkedIn, which is new, our Facebook group, our social media, and our feedback form, which I recommend you all copy and paste that bit.ly, but copy and paste the whole thing and let us know. So we would love for folks. Yes, I'm already seeing the requests coming in to join the Facebook group. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will be following up to everybody who registered with links to watch all of the sessions. It'll be held on like Vimeo, so just keep an eye out for that. Please give us do the feedback form, because we're also asking for your contact info so that we can share it with other folks. So if you feel motivated and want to stay connected, join the Facebook group, join the LinkedIn group, and drop your social handles in the chat right now. We can get connected right now. If you're posting on stories or on Instagram in general or Facebook, tag us at BiH Diaspora. People are dropping their emails, their LinkedIn's, just amazing. So stay connected. Now, unfortunately, we can't all be together at an after party like we usually are. But we're gonna try to keep this momentum going in the next few weeks and throughout the next year. There's so much to do in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and there's so much to do in the diaspora. And we're just hoping, we're excited to see what comes out of this. We always have new folks joining. We always have new adventures starting. We always have new connections starting. Yay, Layla's bringing her son to BDC 22. Love it. Any other things that I'm missing? Organizers, let me know. Bring your kids.
Maybe by next year we'll figure out some sort of daycare service.
I mean, at this point, so many people are having kids. We gotta figure out a daycare system. We should have onesies that are like for bib. That I was promised Chavapi. Where's Amina? Can we get Balkan bread bibs for babies that say I was promised Chavapi?
We can make something happen. So
I want royalty on that one. I'll donate them, maybe.
I just want to say, you can actually remove the share screen thing. I would love to see who else is still here. I just wanted to say like a huge thank you to everybody. I know that this is a hard time, especially a lot of people are zoomed out. Not a lot of people want to hang out on a Zoom screen for 4 hours. And so like, I appreciate that. And I know the commitment that exists in this group in terms of like folks who are really excited to make some pretty drastic changes. So we will continue working on our decade-long plan of development in the diaspora. And I'm hoping that you guys got some inspiration from the speakers you got a chance to connect with today. And next year when it's in person, it's going to be even bigger. So I'm so happy. I'm so happy. So, and grateful for all of you. And I'm so grateful for the team, the planning team, for Samir and for Amra and for Azra and Inara, who is traveling to the Balkans right now, and for Taya.
I'm here though, I'm listening.
You're here, you're already on the plane, you're like ready to go.
I'm still listening though.
And did I miss anybody? I think I said everybody, right? So yeah, really grateful for all of you guys. This takes a lot of work, and we appreciate your patience with all the tech issues. That's not going to be a thing I want to deal with next year, so I can't wait to see y'all in person.
And we are gonna do our best, Sabina, to download the chat. We've been dealing with tech issues all day, so I'm not gonna promise it, but we are gonna try our hardest.
Which we're being down. I pre-selected it. It's gonna download.
Great. It'll be somewhere.
Screenshots too.
Yeah.
Take screenshots. We'll leave this open for a few more minutes. If anybody wants like a platform to promote themselves, we're really good at that as a community.
Play some music while we hang around here for the next 5 minutes.
I am ready. Just kidding, I'm not ready.
Did we grab Amina's playlist, her awesome playlist from Spotify? From Balkan Bread?
No, we created this. We created a BiH Diaspora playlist. We created the playlist at the same time, but they're like the same songs basically. So.
Nice. Shout out to Amina for that one. I used it on my trip and it was great.
Amazing. I'm happy to hear it. I'll try to throw it in here real quick.
In the spirit of the relationships that are formed through this conference, I'm going to play some Haris Djinovic.
I also wanted to say, Eddie, I appreciate the fact that you said, I started this with my brother. I can relate. And we've talked about this before. So.
Yeah, I was always super impressed with the energy the two of you have. And it was a pleasure meeting you face to face in Chicago. By the way, that was one of those meetup events that we organized, and that was fantastic to meet all of you there. So.
Totally. I wish we could have done more stuff, but soon COVID hit. So
this is pretty incredible that you guys have been able to do what you've done given the different circumstances and keeping people awake and online. Zoom fatigue. Pretty sure everyone knows about it by now. So well done, guys. Yeah. Looking forward to LA. By the way, LA is the closest place for me.
It's definitely closer for you, so you better be there.
And we have people from 3 continents presenting. That's pretty great. Let's see how many more we can get when we're all in person, where everyone's from.
Can you put it up there, the music?
Turn it up.
And none of us have drinks. We even started to
Feels so anticlimactic without our usual like after party that goes before in the morning. You know? We're doing what we can. Everybody, you know, you too, Eddie. I know it's like morning, but you know, grab a glass of wine, enjoy your day, start early, start often.
It's gonna be a great thing. By the way, can I just use this opportunity to thank the 3 individuals who just became donors because my phone was pinging off. So I have Narina, thank you very much for becoming a monthly donor. We have Vahidin. Yeah, I met Vahidin in San Francisco, I remember that. So thanks very much for becoming a donor as well. And Tea Sefer as well. Thank you so much, guys. Really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Big shout out. Thank you. Good to see you, Vahidin. It's been a while.
Good to see you too, man. It has been a while. Can't wait to see you in person again.
I enjoy watching your stories and driving that Tesla vehicle that you got. So
more videos coming soon. I'm definitely getting more into it. It's a fun hobby to have.
I feel like a DJ at a wedding where people just keep walking up to the mic in a great way and are like, I would like the chesty thumb. Sima.
Where's the rakia?
Where's the rakia?
Tell me.
Are we gonna have another wedding come from this conference?
We'll see.
That's
We usually find out within 6 months. So
Yeah.
It was 3 months with us. April to August, however long that was.
And you
Under
were
6 months.
wedding this year, Zarina. There was another wedding that year, so.
Yeah, I think there was, but no, ours was pretty fast. It's funny, we were just talking about it last night because they asked how we met, and it's right before the conference. I told my mom, I'm like, "Ide miała talent da nađem sebi husbanda," and then lo and behold, I found myself a husband.
And now you're raising chickens in Minnesota. Like who, you know.
We just got 2 more
The
chickens.
funny thing is that it's a very Bosnian thing to be raising chickens, but it's in Minnesota. So, you know, we support the connection to the homeland, totally.
If nobody has seen Zarina's husband, but he made a testimonial video for us that was very, very wonderful and powerful.
it's so good.
I'd make a testimony video too if I found Zarina at our conference, so I don't blame him.
I just asked him if he wanted to say hi, but he left the house. He was busy today with tasks that he had to do.
It was the most like lead buried testimonial I've ever heard. It was like him expressing a bunch of stuff, and then in the end he's like, "Oh, and by the way, I found a wife there."
Yep.
He's very good at speaking.
He's a good storyteller for sure, 100%.
Who do we have from the first year? Because the first year, all I did was make jokes about how everyone came to find to marry me. And predominantly husbands, because it was like 40 women and
Yeah, it was
including
40,
our
it was,
photographer, Adnan.
It was 99% women and like 2 men.
That's hello.
Hey!
Hey, folks.
Hey, Robbie.
Hey. I'm sure it was good. I'm sure it was great. I'm excited to have Zarina tell me about it.
There's recording.
Robbie, you're meeting us in LA next year, so.
They said
I will totally be there. I promise. I like
You'll
LA.
be there.
LA is more my vibe.
Yeah. Okay, I'll talk to you later.
All right. We are winding down in the chat, so I'm going to close this out so that people can leave and not feel like they have to hang out here. Thank you all so much. I'm so grateful. And connect. We'll share out a bunch of resources. If you have ideas, suggestions, want to put in the work to volunteer. This is all volunteer-led and run. We can always use people that are like creating Zoom links at 3 in the morning. Like